On today's episode, we're going to tell you everything you need to know about where Seattle is getting an NBA expansion team and the return of the Seattle Supersonics on Rain City Rebound. Hello, I'm Zaiem and I am a Seattle-based journalist covering the Sonics, Torrent, and Kraken, and I am with Ben Maya. Ben, why don't you introduce yourself?
Zaiem, this is so exciting, man. Sunny day in Seattle. Happy to be here along with you. I'm a current student at the University of Washington. I cover collegiate athletics for UW, and I am also so excited for the recent news of the Seattle Supersonics potentially returning. It's a no until it's a yes, Zaiem, but I am quite happy with the news in the Emerald City so far. I cover the Supersonics and their history as well as their potential future.
Yeah, and what is your so you have some broadcasting experience, you have experience with basketball. What's your background there?
Yeah, so I work at the University of Washington for the Big Ten Network, broadcasting all our athletics from soccer to basketball, softball, baseball, gymnastics, volleyball, rowing. And what I do is I'm a producer and director in the control room. And when I'm not in the control room, I'm on the mic as a commentator, both a play-by-play and color analysis broadcaster for the University of Washington on Big Ten Plus and ESPN Plus. And I also do a bit of writing on the side for my journalism major.
Awesome. So we have a lot to get into. So the way we wanted to present this episode is I have people coming up to me and they're saying, "Hey, what's going on with the Sonics?" And so I just wanted to go through, and we're going to do this like a recipe because there's a recipe that is necessary for NBA expansion, and it's a really complicated recipe. It's like a décroix or something like really hard to bake, something like that. And so it's a
Okay.
lot of moving parts and a lot of things can go wrong. And if the temperature of the egg whites, I don't know how to make a décroix. I'm just made. If it's not right, then it could all fall apart. But
Sure.
the ingredients are all there, and let's just go through them. So first of all, you need a fan base, Ben. Let's talk about what do you know about Seattle, the fan base, and its appetite for basketball.
Sure. I mean, I think something interesting about the city of Seattle when it comes to talking potential NBA expansion is in the, modern era of NBA expansion. So not, late 80s, 90s onward, there has not been a market that has previously had an NBA team besides the kind of Charlotte Hornets, Charlotte Bobcats, New Orleans Pelicans mess that was. And Seattle would fill that gap as a team that obviously had the Supersonics in the up until the early to mid to late 2000s, and so that taste is still in the mouths of citizens of Seattle, and they still know what it was like. People who live here know what it was like to have an NBA team in their own city, and I think that is something that is very powerful to have that recency. And I know it's almost 20 years ago, but again, they at least had that team at one point in the Supersonics, and so the void, right, of something that you once had, I think is a much greater feeling and brings a lot more emotion than the void of something you never had. And I think that you see it throughout the city. I mean, you can't go really down a lot of streets in Seattle without seeing Supersonics gear. I think that's fair to say, right, Zaiem?
Yeah, no, totally. Like grocery store everywhere. Like
Mm-hmm.
they kept the torch
Yeah.
blazing. Yeah, it's interesting because you and I have very different experiences because I
Yeah.
do remember the Sonics. I do remember going to Key Arena. I do remember
Mm-hmm.
watching Ray Allen and Patrick Ewing and just like going after work. I used to work right next to the Space Needle, and we'd get
Mm-hmm.
off work and then we'd just like go over and catch a Sonics game. We did that so many times, and it was like such an integral part of my winter sports experience. And then
Yeah.
it's gone, versus like you had never lived in a city with an NBA team. And what has that been like, hearing about the ghost of the Sonics, but and it's like the specter of it may return someday, and we've been hearing this really since the day they left.
Mm-hmm.
Like how's that been? Is it feel, because you don't have that sense of loss presumably.
You're right. You're right. I was two, I guess, when the Sonics,
Okay.
stopped playing ball in the Emerald City. What's what's kind of fascinating though, Zaiem, is that it's like this legend, right? And it's celebrated still as if they were still here. They have everything as if they were still here. Like I said, you have the fans, you have people talking about them. We're talking about them. Are they playing tomorrow? Not that I know of. And so it's like you have media covering them. You have people making apparel for the Supersonics. I think one of the coolest stats numbers I know of regarding Seattleites' interest in the Supersonics is Simply Seattle, an awesome apparel store. Year after year, usually their best-selling franchise and their best-selling merchandise is Sonic stuff. Over Seahawks, over Mariners, over Storm. And that is something that's fascinating for a team that hasn't been around for almost 20 years. And so to answer your question, you're right. I don't have that sense of loss because I wasn't really here when Ray Allen was playing in the 90s when Gary Payne and Sean Kemp were doing their thing. But it feels like it's like I'm missing something to my Seattle experience because everyone is always talking about it. Everyone's always repping, and it's like you're curious. Me being someone who hasn't been around for the Supersonics, I'm curious, thinking about what was that like. People care about this so much. Why do they care about it so much still, even though it's been gone for so long?
And that is the first ingredient, is that Seattle has fans. They have fans across generations. People who were here when the Sonics left, they kept it going. We have younger generations. We have people who don't remember when the Sonics were here, or who weren't alive or here. We're only 2 when the Sonics left, and it's still, it doesn't matter that it's not like you have to have remembered the Sonics, because basketball never left Seattle, and Seattle has been super supportive of basketball in other forms, with the Storm and college basketball. And the perception, if anyone had the perception that the Sonics left Seattle because of a lack of fan support, is patently untrue. It has nothing to do. This city loved its teams. They love its teams. They love basketball. They love the Sonics. And it goes across generations. This is a multi-generational, multi-demographic event. This is a full community civic event that will hopefully happen. But that's one ingredient. Now, the other one that people point to, and was the main reason why the Sonics left in the first place, was they need a place to play. And one of the questions is, all right, where would the Sonics play? How much taxpayer money is necessary? Are these greedy billionaires? Oh, they're just trying to squeeze more taxpayer money out of this, and I'm just tired of all the billionaires taking all the money. And where would the Sonics play if they were to show up? Are we going to have to spend another $1.5 billion of taxpayer money on an arena, Ben?
We're not, which is the beauty of it. Climate Pledge Arena. No, smack dab in the city of Seattle. I think one of the best things about Climate Pledge Arena, for one, it's newly renovated, 2021, right? And so that's when you look at that compared to other NBA arenas. I was looking this morning, and I think, sure, there's been opened arenas that have since been renovated, but if you're looking at the newest renovation date, I think that would make Climate Pledge Arena the second or third newest NBA arena if it were to be the home of an NBA team eventually. So it's new, right? It's up to date. It holds, for basketball games, 18,300 occupants. That would be 18th out of current NBA arenas. So it is more than doing its part in terms of allowing enough people to come and pay for tickets and watch NBA basketball live in person in Seattle. And I think maybe the best thing that I look for in a place to go and watch professional basketball, which may not be as important to the billionaires and the people making the calls of what will happen when it comes to NBA expansion, is I love the fact that it is in the Seattle Center. I love the fact that you can get to it by link and then monorail, or you can get to it by link and walking, and it's walkable from people in all different neighborhoods of Seattle by bus. It is one of the worst things, Zaiem, in sports, is going to drive 45 minutes to some like crappy neighborhood where it's acres of parking lots and cement, to walk all the way to some, kind of just gross dome, right? And that is not what Climate Pledge Arena is at all. It's in the middle of Seattle and a beautiful spot to watch potential NBA basketball.
It's right on the Space Needle. It's super
Yeah.
picturesque, and it is a beautiful arena. So I cover the Seattle Kraken, and who also play at Climate Pledge Arena. And so Climate Pledge, first of all, was built with the NBA in mind. The Kraken play there for the NHL, but when they built it, they had both the NHL and the NBA designed from day one. Also, renovation is really understating it. Like there's renovation and there's renovation. What they did is they took the roof, the iconic roof, they lifted it up, and then they destroyed everything underneath it. They tore everything down. They built a hole into the ground 60 feet deep, built an arena, a brand new arena, and then put the roof on top of it. So everything inside is brand sparkling new. And I can tell you, when I go to other arenas to cover hockey games, they are not as nice as Seattle's. They're not as nice as Climate Pledge. When other media come in, they're like, whoa, this place is amazing. It is a gorgeous arena, and it is fully fitted for the NBA. No renovations are further needed. The renovations initially, the $1.15 billion renovation, was all done privately. So taxpayers never had to pay any money for this arena. And this is where the Sonics did play. This is in the same physical spot, even if nothing is the same other than the roof.
Yeah.
The other thing is there's already an NBA locker room. Right now it's being used as storage for the organ. But when the NBA actually, hopefully, starts playing there, then they don't have to do anything. So all of this was built with bringing the Sonics back in mind. They've been very public about this. This is not something we're trying to infer. They have said, hey, we are not just building this for the NHL, but we're also building this for the NBA. And the Sonics are not an afterthought. But also, again, I just really want to reiterate, because I read the Seattle Times comments, mostly because I hate myself. And people are like, this is a ploy to extract taxpayer money and these greedy billionaires. And none of that's happening here. Nobody needs to pay any private money. They've already put in $1.15 billion of their own private money. So we know that this is something that they have a track record of doing, and it's all private. So really wanted to stress that. The other thing is that Climate Pledge Arena is really essentially the only viable place to put an NBA team. That we can talk about that in the owner part coming up next, but there is only one viable place for an arena, and people who have lived here for a long time and followed the dramatic saga of trying to build an arena in Soto, and then there was a sacred strip of Occidental Avenue that must not be disturbed, and it's like where Abraham Lincoln was born or something. I don't know why it's so sacred, but they couldn't do it. There was like a street vacation that needed to happen to build an arena, and there was a city council vote, and it was a big thing. It didn't happen, and they couldn't build an arena in Soto, and then that's why we have the Climate Pledge renovation with this group instead. But if they're like, well, maybe they won't play a Climate Pledge arena. Maybe they'll play someplace else. There is no place else. There is no Soto arena because they still have the Occidental Avenue issue, and that was just a massive, nasty nightmare. You're not going to put an arena in Bellevue or in Renton, which are the other suggested things. It's just none of this is practical. And the people who own Climate Pledge Arena are the presumptive owners of the Sonics should they get the bid. So let's talk about the owner. Let's talk about Samantha Holloway.
Let's do it. Yeah. Before we move on, Sam, I know you spend a lot of time in Climate Pledge Arena. I want to ask, is there a favorite aspect of it that you go back to, like, this is my favorite part of where I work when I go cover the Kraken?
I love it's the only arena I know of that has like windows that you can see daylight during the game. Like, it's so cool. It's like especially if it's an afternoon game, or if the Kraken ever made the playoffs again, it's in April and the days are later, and you're like, there's just game going on, saying you can see blue sky, or in Seattle you can see gray sky.
Gray or blue sky.
Gray or blue sky. It's really great. The other thing is, I think just the acoustics are really good. I think that the way that it amplifies sound and redirects it back down. It was designed to be loud. The way the Seahawks, their brand is loudness. That was intentionally designed with the renovation of Climate Pledge Arena. CEO Todd Lewicki of the Kraken Sonics group was also the CEO or president of the Seahawks when they hired Pete Carroll, and so he is, he wanted to take that identity of this is a very loud venue, and it's great because then when the crowd's into it, it's really really loud. I love the atmosphere there, but I really there's I don't know of any other arena where you can just look and be like, look out the window and you can see daylight, and then people also from the outside they can go in. It's Tightwad Terrace as it's called, where you don't have to have tickets. You can just like look through the window and see the game. So I really like that.
Yeah. Too many to choose from.
It is a beautiful arena. I love
it.
Going
sure
there.
Is. It sure is.
It's a shock when I go someplace else and I'm like, oh man, this place, like, your seats don't even have cup holders? Really? All right.
Yeah.
So we need an owner, and we need an owner with a bunch of cash, and the presumptive owner will be Samantha Holloway, the principal owner, who is also the owner of the Kraken, and she is, the expansion fee is somewhere going to be between $6 and $10 billion reported. We don't have any official numbers from the NBA, but it's a lot, and there's a lot has to happen. Ben, what do you know about Samantha Holloway and this ownership group?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think for one, like, unlike Las Vegas, which has been talked about, another potential location for NBA expansion, Seattle only has one public person who's come forward and potentially talked about putting together a bid. Where Las Vegas, I think you have a couple of different parties who are looking into potentially bidding for an NBA team. And so I actually think that's a positive when you have one the city can get behind one person. It's not a conflict, right? And Samantha Holloway, I mean, she's the only person, like we said, who has expressed interest in putting together a bid, and currently the owner of the Seattle Kraken. Also, something that I think is interesting, now majority owner of Climate Pledge Arena as well. That's correct, right, Zaiem? And so she's really the perfect person for this project, with the success she's had with the Kraken, who's an expansion team in the NHL, and now owning the venue, being the majority owner of the venue where, like we've talked about, the Seattle Supersonics could potentially play. And so, I think I saw news, she's already retained financial advisors from like JP Morgan or some sort of firm. And so clearly serious about this. And I think that is great signs for Seattle NBA fans and Seattle sports fans in general, is that you have someone who has proven herself already, if it is in team ownership or venue ownership, entertainment ownership in general, who is serious about pursuing NBA expansion.
Also of note that her father, the late David Bonderman, who passed away recently, was a minority owner of the Boston Celtics. And so there's already an existing relationship with the NBA there, as well as Todd Lewicki also has a relationship with the NBA, the CEO. So these aren't outsiders to the NBA process who are trying to get into the NBA, try to get into the exclusive club. They already have existing relationships with the NBA, with Adam Silver, with the commissioner, and so this is, and as you alluded to, they structured all of this recently. They put the Kraken and a future NBA property and Climate Pledge Arena under the one roof brand, and so and then also the Coachella Valley Firebirds, the Kraken minor league team, and the practice facilities, and all that was structured. All that was restructured to incorporate a potential NBA expansion team. And when we say potential NBA expansion team, I just want to be clear here. A lot of this is being reported like it's a done deal, and there's even like a city council person who is like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I want to be super cautious about that kind of wording because we have been through this before. We have been through this where we're like, oh, the Sonics are coming. They're definitely coming. And then they're not coming. Okay, but this time they're coming. And so they're not coming. We are so much further along than we ever have been before. The NBA had never opened a bidding up process. They never had, but there's still more stuff that needs to happen. And so
Sure.
I just really, I in 2013, it was reported for sure that the Sonics were coming back when Chris Hansen bought the Sacramento Kings and was moving them to Seattle. I don't know if you noticed, but that didn't happen, even though it was reported that it happened. Last I checked, the Sacramento Kings were still in Sacramento. And even though I remember it was like, oh, yep, 100% Sonics are coming back. So I just want to pump the brakes here. Now,
sure.
I
believe the literature, right, Zaiem? The literature right now is they have formally approved exploration in Seattle and Las Vegas. Is that what, I think that's what it is in writing, correct?
Yeah, and it's also interesting that Seattle and Vegas are the only two cities that they're accepting bids from, which has been, the NBA has been talking about specifically Seattle and Vegas for a couple of years now. But it is interesting that they're like, if you're Nashville or Kansas City or, like, too bad. I don't know. I'll wait till maybe next round's expansion or I'll move someplace. But yeah, it is just Seattle and Vegas. And I know Seattle or Vegas rather has multiple competing ownerships and they're trying to figure out who's going to own and where they're going to play. But here it is not. Now, the ownership structure is a little complicated because I don't think Samantha Holloway herself has the $6 to $10 billion for a bid. And so what happens is these NBA ownership groups, because there's so much money, they become a conglomerate. And so the way this works is the principal owner needs to have own at least 15% of the stake. So Samantha Holloway would need to own at least 15% of the $10 billion. Let's say it's $10 billion because that makes the math really easy. So she needs to put up $150 million, just $150 million of her own money. Now you can have up to 25 minority investors, and they have to have at least 1% each. So that's going to be 1% of 10 billion is 100 million.
100 million, yeah.
100 million, yeah. And then did I say 150 million for Samantha Holloway? I'm at 1.5 billion.
I was just thought roll right through it.
Yeah, no. I was like, wait a second, this math doesn't math. Yeah. It's just when there's so many zeros, it's very easy to lose an order of magnitude.
It's hard. It is hard to count all the zeros. Yeah,
it's a lot of zeros.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that, and this is the thing that would concern me or has concerned me, is private equity. And private equity is limited up to only 30%, and they don't have any voting rights because private equity, their goal is often to just go in and extract short-term value. And we've had a lot of beloved brands suffer or die. RIP Toys R Us. Among many others, Red Lobster or whatever. And in this case, the NBA they're very aware of that. And so they limit the private equity amount to only 30%. This was a concern with the Celtics sale a couple of years ago, where the owner initially, the money was over the 30% threshold, and then they had to restructure the bid in order to get under that 30%. But private equity is a scary word for a lot of people. And it's like, okay, well, if private equity has ownership of the Sonics, what does that mean? Especially because, Samantha Holloway's late father, David Bonderman, he founded one of the world's largest private equity firms. So, but it's just something to point out there.
Sam, I have a question for you. If you might. So I mentioned that again. She's really the only person who's come out publicly saying she's going to put together a bid. Holloway. Do you think that's? And I said I think that's a good thing, having just one person. But you're talking about concerns about private equity, about getting the money. Do you think it'd be better to have multiple people coming out and potentially putting together bid packages for NBA expansion, or is it good to have the city focused on one group?
I think it's better to just have city focus on one group, especially
Okay.
if this was like if this was a city that did not have an NBA team before, I think it would be different. But
Yeah.
because there is such an ugly history with the Chris Hansen group and the Soto
Hmm.
Arena, and if you people who are really interested and if you really are interested in going back and reading about all the nonsense, you can either go to sonicsrising.com, which is the old SB Nation blog that is still up, or if you Jeff Baker of at the time the Seattle Times, that's GEOFF, he wrote a book and it's about the Kraken ostensibly, but it's really about the history of the civic effort to get Climate Pledge Arena renovated, and it goes into a lot of the nonsense and the hard feelings and the factions, and it's just having a unifying group to say, okay, you know what, we're going to heal, and we're going to, now we have the community, we have the hockey team, we have the investment, and we're building for this NBA team. I think in this case, it's good to just have a single unified voice. But yeah, in Vegas, maybe that's different because there are like 3 or 4 different groups, and maybe that's better for them. But in Seattle, I think there's just too much hurt and too much
Sure.
rawness. We don't need another fight.
That's the pulse I kind of got on it. It's like these Seattle as a whole, right? They've gone through too much. They just want a team, and I think if you can rally behind one person in Holloway, that could be the easiest way of doing that. I totally agree.
And a strong record with everything they've done with the Kraken. Is just a
Mm-hmm.
really well run organization. If people, I mean, the on ice results, I mean, that's different because it's really hard to win right away with an expansion team. But it's a first class organization. It's a first class hockey team, and they run away. I have nothing but good things to say about the Samantha Holloway Todd Lewicki group with the way they run the Kraken, and I'm excited that they're willing to do this here. The other thing is also that, with the way they run the hockey team is they're willing to spend money, and there's a salary cap, but on facilities, on personnel, and then in the NBA, there isn't a hard salary cap. There's a salary cap, but there's also an apron, and then and you have other teams that are in their contention windows that are announcing that they're going to cut payroll because they want to stay out of the luxury tax. And it's like, you're in a contention window, buddy. Like, why are you cutting payroll? But that, and it does not seem like that is how this ownership group would operate. But it's not as easy as just saying, okay, I'm putting a bid, and you're like, all right, you're you had the highest bid, then I guess you win.
Mm-hmm.
There's a vetting process, and the vetting process
Sure.
is very thorough. So that is the fourth ingredient for this. So we have the first 3 ingredients we have in place. They're already in the bowl, right? We got the fans, we got the venue,
It's in
we
the
got
pot.
it's in the pot,
Heats up.
getting
Heats
mixed
up.
up, it's
Yep.
getting ready to go.
That's right.
Now they got a vet, and the ownership group has been anticipating this bid for quite a few years, and they have, as you mentioned, they hired J.P. Morgan Chase and then Moelis and Company, and
Mm-hmm.
J.P. Morgan, they have like their own dedicated group of people who only deal with sports teams and sports finances, and they're really really sharp. I have a friend who worked in the financial structuring of sports teams there, and the process there is essentially, you tell us everything. You get, I mean, full access to the books. There is nothing that is hidden. And if you want to buy a sports team and you're like, well, yeah, don't look over here, then they say, all right, then we are not going to give you your sports team. So
Mm-hmm.
there is no realistic way that you have somebody and then turns out that they actually are carrying $400 million in debt, or that their money is based in crypto and it's not real, or this is real vetting for real money. And then you have also the are you the right fit? Does the NBA like you? Jeff Baker in his book wrote about a meeting between Chris Hansen, who tried to own the Sonics, buy the Sonics, move them here, and then NBA Commissioner David Stern. I think it was David Stern. It might have been with Adam Silver, actually. But he had created such a poor impression and came off so poorly that they were like, we're not getting this. This guy's not getting a team. He's just not going to get a team. And I have not heard a lot of good things about Chris Hansen. There's some people who I've never heard to say a bad word about anyone except for Chris Hansen. So that's not great. So you need somebody who has a good relationship with the NBA, who the NBA likes, who the NBA trusts. And so you have Samantha Holloway and then CEO Todd Lewicki, who his brother Tim Lewicki constructed Climate Pledge Arena, also has a very good relationship with the NBA. They want to make sure that they have the right fit. And then Holloway's experience with being the minority owner of the Celtics also helps there as well. But yeah, there's no, I don't think there's any concern. I don't think there's really any concern at all. They have an NHL track record. They've got the Celtics cross ownership thing, which that ownership stake has been sold off, so there's no conflict of interest there. And also, it is worth noting that I don't think any of the Vegas groups have gotten someone to put together a bid the way that Samantha Holloway has with JP Morgan. They're not that far along yet in their process the way Seattle is. So Seattle's just kind of the chugging along. I don't see what the issue would be from the vetting standpoint with this group. They seem really clean. This has been really deliberate. This has been planned for years and years and years. And it's not like, oh, an NBA opportunity came up. Okay, how do we structure and like try to figure everything out and get everything together? No, they knew along. They knew when they were tearing that thing down in 2018 that this day could someday come. And so I think that ingredient is not fully in the bowl yet, but it's like salt, it's necessary, but you're not going to mess it up. You're not going to overcook it. You're not going to, you're not going to burn the salt, but you need it. And so right now we're adding the salt to it. Yeah,
you sure do. I will say, I think there are some things you have to think about when obviously figuring all this out, like a G League team, right? NBA teams have a G League affiliate, a training facility. I don't know if there's been talk about, that's again, that's a little more niche and maybe too much context for right now, but you do there. It's not, at the end of the day, you are putting together something worth $7 to $10 billion. You're trying to start, bring back an NBA franchise. There's a lot that goes into it. And I think that can't be understated, but you are right, Zaiem, in saying that it seems like definitely in comparison to the Las Vegas bids, the Seattle group led by Holloway is a lot further along the line when it comes to figuring out a final bid and then hopefully, having success when taking it to the Board of Governors.
So speaking of the Board of Governors, that is the final step. That is the putting in the oven, and we no longer have control over this. And how it comes out of the oven, hopefully it is a beautiful DeQuois with its crispiness and the nice sweetness and the flavor. And
have you had a DeQuois recently? You're on a DeQuois kick. Is that your thing?
It's the most complicated food item I can think of to make. Yeah. So
that's fair.
It's the sort of thing. Yeah. It's like I don't know if you ever made a DeQuois or ever had one.
I don't think I've never had a DeQuois. No.
Oh, they're delicious. They're so good. Yeah, it's like this little like crispy dessert thing. It's great. So the NBA is currently all right. So they're vetting, and then there's going to be an approval process. One thing also to note is that the NBA does not have to approve both Seattle and Vegas. If Vegas doesn't have their stuff together, then they can go asynchronous expansion, which is what happened in the NHL. In the NHL, the last two teams, expansion teams, were also Seattle and Vegas and Seattle in that order. And Vegas expanded in 2016, and then Seattle, the Kraken, were added in 21. So there was 5 years apart. That so it's not like, okay, well, Vegas, if you see some stories and they're like, oh, they haven't figured out their arena and they don't know who's going to do that, and then the assumption might be that, well, Seattle's expansion is gated on what happens in Vegas because they want to add both at the same time. I don't think that's true, and Adam Silver has said that is not true, that it could be one team, it could be two teams, it could be no teams, but this is not dependent on what happens in Vegas in order for the Seattle to come, because Seattle, the other thing is that we should mention is they already have the branding. When the Sonics moved to Oklahoma City, there was a lawsuit, and one of the terms of the settlement of that lawsuit is if Seattle gets an NBA team again, then the name and the records and the logo of the Seattle Supersonics revert back to the Seattle NBA team. And so that means that if Seattle is awarded an expansion team, they don't have to come up with branding or come up with a name or come up with colors or any of that stuff. They could play an NBA game tomorrow, because they do play it. They played preseason games at Climate Pledge Arena, and they play Seattle Storm games at Climate Pledge Arena, and like everything is ready to go. Like it's just, you just turn the key and you say, okay, you know what, Sonic's ready to go, fill the roster, let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas isn't there yet, but we don't have to wait for Vegas to get their ducks in a row in order for Seattle to move forward. So that's just a really, really important caveat. And then also the note about, what is the team going to be called? It'll be the Sonics. I mean, I guess it's theoretically possible it would be called something else, but I think the person suggesting that, that meme where like they're in a boardroom and then somebody suggests an idea and then they throw them out the window.
Yeah.
I think that's
is that what would happen?
Yeah, like what if we called them the Seattle Gooey Ducks? And it's like, it's out the window.
Gooey Ducks, I kind of like the Gooey Ducks though. Maybe for a G League team, like the Gooey Ducks.
Ooh, yeah, oh yeah, the G League team. Oh, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think, I mean, you talk about not being on the same track as Vegas, right? And I think that's actually a really interesting kind of case study to talk about, is what the owners are balancing when it comes to expansion and approving it or not is the expansion fees versus owning less of the league, right? And let's say they own 1/131st of the league instead of 1/132nd of the league. That's hundreds of millions of dollars in their pocket, every year, rather than if both teams came in at once.
Yeah, that's a good point. And this is also just good to note is like, well, what is the tension here? Because so the 20 or 30 owners have to vote yes. And the incentives are different for some of the owners. So because there's, as you just mentioned, there's revenue sharing, and owners own a part of the league. They own 1/30th of the league. If you then add teams, then you're diluting your equity. You're diluting your ownership stake. And the way you offset that is this gigantic, let's say $10 billion expansion fee. Well, that's $20 billion, 10 from each team. And then, that gets, divided among the owners. And now they get this cash payment of like $500 million that is not subject to the revenue share. It's not subject to the, adding to the revenue for the salary cap. It's just, you just get this money. And so you get this gigantic, $500 million roughly, just up front in cash to say, hey, here you go. And just for the privilege of voting yes. Now, larger market teams like the Knicks specifically, or the Warriors, the Mavericks, potentially, the ones that say, okay, but long term, that money is still going to be less than the amount of money that we are diluted by losing a revenue share, they might vote no. So now the question is, how many of those owners exist to vote no? I don't think it's going to be unanimous. The vote to explore expansion
is anything unanimous? Same? Are votes ever unanimous now? I guess you're. I cut you off there.
Yeah, it was. Even James Dolan was like, "All right, you know what? Yeah, take the vote to accept expansion." So James Dolan is the very combative owner of the New York Knicks, and has historically and very famously been a thorn in the NBA side about all sorts of things. Sometimes even just for the sake of being difficult. But even James Dolan was like, "Go ahead, at least explore expansion." I don't think don't think it's going to be unanimous. But I also don't think that this comes to a vote. I don't think it gets as far as long as it does unless Adam Silver knows that
Yeah.
it's going to pass. It's like in Congress where you don't bring it to a vote unless you know you have the votes. And my guess is that they think they have the votes, and so the NBA is probably in a good spot for rubber stamping the Seattle expansion process. It's not a done deal yet, but it's close. And then the other thing that's important to note is this is a very, very large financial transaction for a team that would, the NBA is saying, would start playing in 2028. 2 years from now, there's a lot can happen in the world. The economy could go sideways. Gas could be $15 a gallon. We could have a war. Who knows, right? There are all sorts of geopolitical reasons why the environment for an NBA expansion team may not be appropriate, and we just have to wait and see. So even though it seems like all of the NBA stuff is lined up and ready to go, and it all is looks like it's going to go smoothly, and I believe that is likely going to be the case, there are geopolitical things that could derail this in a real meaningful way.
Hard stop.
But that's what I got. So I got a little ingredient list. So we've got our fans, we've got our place to play, we've got our owner with enough cash, and they're going through the vetting process right now. They're putting together the bid, and then the NBA will vote to approve. When they will announce it is unknown. Adam Silver said that they would have some answer either way by the end of 2026. We might hear this July, we might hear this September, we might hear this October. We'll see, but I keep my ear close to the ground, and so we'll probably get some signals as that gets closer. But right now, it's just full speed ahead. Things are chugging along, and we just got to go through the process. And it's as you started the show off, it's a no until it's a yes. But I think that they're making a really strong case towards a yes.
I think you're right, Zaiem, and I believe the next monumental Board of Governors meeting, important one, is in July or June, sometime in the summer at the Summer League in Vegas. And I think you're right in saying that, like, we don't know when the answers are going to come, right? Just because they're having a meeting, that's a scheduled thing. That doesn't mean expansion's on the way. But of course, it's another opportunity to talk about potential expansion in Seattle and Vegas markets. And so hopefully the conversation is continued there, or at least advanced there in some manner, and setting it up nicely for the next Board of Governors meeting. And eventually you can hopefully deliver the final blow.
So I think that's all I got, unless you got something else, Ben.
I think that's it. What a nice conversation, Zaiem, about potential NBA in Seattle.
I know.
In the Pacific Northwest. We're back.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm trying not to get too excited because that's how you get hurt, but I'm really, really excited. So, but we'll wait and see. So that does it for this week's episode. We'll be back. We're gonna start doing this on a weekly cadence, and we got all sorts of news and things to talk about the Sonics, and they're hopeful and inevitable eventual return to Seattle. And so we'll see you next time for Rain City Rebound.